Right now, British Prime Minister Theresa May is at Buckingham Palace informing the Queen of her decision to resign from office in exactly 2 weeks' time, June 7th. May announced that just a couple of hours ago outside 10 Downing Street in London. And for many involved in British politics, it was never so much a case of if she resigns, but when. She came to power 3 years ago to steer Britain's departure from the European Union, and now she will make her own exit before Brexit becomes a reality.
I believe it was right to persevere, even when the odds against success seemed high. But it is now clear to me that it is in the best interests of the country for a new Prime Minister to lead that effort.
May took no questions following her statement, which ended with her nearly in tears. And having informed the world of her plan, she, in these shots you see, on her way to see the Queen to deliver word of her impending resignation personally. She will, though, stay on long enough to host U.S. President Donald Trump for his upcoming state visit. But certainly the jockeying to succeed her has already begun. Thomas Daigle is leading our coverage from our bureau in London. He was, of course, watching the announcement from Theresa May and has been gathering reaction to it. But on the statement itself, Thomas, largely stoic for the 7 minutes or so until emotion caught up with her at the end.
It was right at the moment where she said that she was the second female Prime Minister of Britain, but certainly not the last one. That's when you really started to feel her voice break. You know, thinking back on her legacy was to pull Britain out of the European Union, reach that divorce agreement that MPs would sign off on, but they never did. She acknowledged she tried and failed 3 times to get her deal through MPs' approval in Parliament. But this week, what really did her in was her attempt to get it through a 4th time. This was a retooled Brexit deal that she was trying to get approved in the House of Commons at the start of June. It included an option for a second referendum, and even her staunchest allies in the Tory party who stood by her previously in the past couple days told her time's up. And it really was up to her today to either set out a timetable for her departure, or backbenchers within her Conservatives were going to do it for her. So she has set that crucial date, June 7th, after President Trump's visit and after the D-Day commemorations here, when the Prime Minister is going to be front and center. She's going to stay on as caretaker Prime Minister in the interim, as she is laying out in her discussions with the Queen as we speak, Heather. And here's more of that.
I will shortly leave the job that it has been the honour of my life to hold. The second female Prime Minister, but certainly not the last. I do so with no ill will, but with enormous and enduring gratitude to have had the opportunity to serve the country I love.
And no questions. That's how she ended that statement, as we've said, on that emotional tone there, Thomas. Noting, in terms of people reacting to this announcement, one of the first to send out reaction on Twitter, thanks for stoical service to the country and the party, Boris Johnson, who's already figuring very prominently, Thomas, in discussion about potential successors.
Yeah, if you look at the bookmakers' odds right now here in Britain as potential successors to Theresa May as Tory leader and indeed Prime Minister, Boris Johnson has the early lead. But don't forget, when it comes to Tory leadership runs, the most likely to win at the start isn't always the one who ends up the winner. Indeed, Boris Johnson was at some point perhaps even the front runner the last time. He was expected to beat Theresa May in the last race, but she ended up winning by default because everyone else dropped out. In terms of reaction, today the French government saying that they're going to have to wait and see what the impact is on bilateral relations and on Brexit, but they say they stand ready to work with the new British Prime Minister. That coming from a spokesperson for French President Emmanuel Macron. Nigel Farage, who's a Brexit champion, back in the limelight this week with his upstart Brexit party. He's saying it's difficult not to feel for Mrs. May, but politically she misjudged the mood of the country and the party. And crucially here, Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn has been calling for a general election for some time now. He's renewing those calls today in light of the departure of Theresa May, or at least the imminent departure. And perhaps, Heather, that might be what's needed eventually to break the Brexit deadlock for some leader, whoever that may be, to get some sort of consensus around what form of Brexit should pull this country out of the EU.
Thomas, thank you for the information this hour. We'll talk again later in the morning. Thomas Dagg, who is in London for us.